This is TWiT.
Let's talk a little bit about the new California bill. This is the new thing. Of course, Texas started this by saying individuals could sue abortion providers or even somebody who drove somebody to get an abortion. A new California bill could allow parents to sue social media companies for up to $25,000 if their children become addicted to the platforms. Now, it's not a law yet, but in this day and age, I could easily see this becoming a law in California. I'm sure you talk about, do you ever talk about internet addiction, Georgia? Or what do you think of that notion that people could get addicted to social media?
They are addicted to social media. I don't even have my teens, like even, they won't tell their parents this, but even my teens will say that they are 100% addicted and use way too much time on the internet. They're that's what it's made for, right? Like they try to get you hooked up to be able to, this is what makes you feel good, and your value is dependent upon how many people liked the latest thing that you did. So I think that it comes with a huge cost. So
should there be a law that lets people sue for addiction? Like, should I be able to sue Twitter? Or actually, it wouldn't be Twitter, it'd be Instagram, right? Or
right.
Snapchat, that my kid just can't put the phone down.
Yeah. Or, even something like TikTok, like just even media that people are using. But I don't think that you should be able to, I don't think that you should sue them. I don't think that it's the same thing as being like government being able to, well, in like Canada, being able to sue tobacco because of the amount of Medicare costs that it costs the government.
That's different.
To be able to cover.
That makes sense.
It's a different thing. It's a much more direct line of kind of attack, and they already knew the cost to that versus social media. It's one of those things that I think that kids shouldn't be on it. Is like, you want to wait as long as possible to have your children on social media, because it does create the same kind of addiction as a gambling machine does. That on and off reward makes our brain just go wild. And it's really hard for people to get off of it. Like there are so many 70, 80-year-olds that are the same thing. Like once they're on, they can't get off again. Even politicians and people that we know and billionaires, they're on Twitter and they can't stop tweeting. And you're like, just put down Twitter, stop. Someone take away the phone. But
so is it ultimately the fault of these companies that design these algorithms to be so sticky?
I think that yes, they hire people like me to be able to make their systems as like you can
they're
say
doing
Snapchat
it on purpose.
streaks. Like they're doing it on purpose because you're all like, our amount of attention is finite and we can only be on one social platform at a time. And so because of that, they're trying to fight to make it as addictive and as salient and having people on there as much as possible, because that's really how they make money, being able to see what we do and what we click and what we don't click. It's not really about using the device, but it's about finding out where we go from what device, right? Like Facebook makes most of its money not from us being on Facebook, but on being able to track where we go and why we're going there.
So it's no different than Purdue Pharma selling OxyContin and encouraging physicians to overprescribe OxyContin, knowing people will get addicted. Is like Instagram and Snap and TikTok, are they the Purdue Pharmas of social?
I actually do believe so. Like, I don't think that I think that they come with some, like, a lot of good, and you can send out information and you have direct access to people, and it gives a lot of people a lot of power. So I don't think that it is just a negative, but just like, using OxyContin or something else, if you are in extreme pain, it can also be very beneficial. I don't think that it should just be, we can't just throw out the baby with the bathwater, but I think that us not knowing that it comes with a severe cost, and that like even people that work in these large companies, they will themselves say that they know that they are causing social damage as well as great benefits. But we can't just say that it's only good, and we can't just say that it's only bad. So I think that it should be, looked into. I think that it should be legislated. I think that if they're tracking us, we should know what they're tracking and why. Who are they sending all of this information to? How is it being used? How are we being manipulated? It's kind of the shadiness for me is more about us not knowing. There is no transparency. And if you take a look at their, try to read through all of the legalese of all of their privacy policies, it's really difficult to be able to navigate, even if you have a law degree.
And yet, I mean, you could also accuse Starbucks of foisting caffeine. Starbucks of foisting caffeine on us, Nicholas. Right? I mean, they are in a business where they know perfectly well they're making a somewhat addictive product. That's the beauty of it from their point of view.
Yeah, no, this is stuff we discuss internally. Like, let's say we're reviewing the new iPhone. We're like, are we, by giving the iPhone a good score when the camera's great, excellent, are we contributing to, just kids just endlessly scrolling through Instagram or just spending all day in Discord? Like, should we take that stuff into account when we evaluate, the Pixel 6 or whatever? I don't know, but it is stuff that we're thinking about. Like, to what degree? Didn't Tim Cook say a few months ago that he doesn't want to encourage like mindless scrolling on your phone? And just think about how many people are just mindlessly scrolling. I mean,
but he still wants you to be on the phone.
Buy the phone.
Yeah, he still wants you to have the phone. He just doesn't want you to mind because he doesn't make any money from the scrolling.
Don't be mindless. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's great that you. Actually, it's really great, Nicholas, that the Consumers Union thinks about that. I from time to time wonder if I'm culpable because I mean we talk about all the shiny new addictive objects, and we're always reviewing them and talking about them and ways to use them. And, my career as a tech journalist really has been, to some degree, to foster people's usage of these addictive devices.
Yeah, I struggle with that too because it's like.
Go ahead, Nicholas.
Oh, I was going to say it's like is it my role to say this iPhone is awesome, but don't use it because Facebook is bad, or don't use it because Instagram is addictive. I don't know what my actual role there is in that sort of transaction, but we're not ignoring it. We are thinking like, what role do we play here? Should we tweak? Should we not? Should we just leave it as is? I'm not announcing anything today, but like we're thinking about all these things that you see that you don't necessarily think of Consumer Reports like necessarily weighing in on. But we're thinking about it, I guess.
You made a good point, Georgia, because all of these things have some benefit. It's not that they're completely without merit. Even casino gambling is entertaining. Starbucks keeps me awake.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're in great pain,
Oxy
is a boon.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's that knowledge, right? Like, I think that like shows like this and like you're learning also knowledge about like that media comes with certain costs and how do you know when you're dealing with it? And I think that is what should be taught in schools. Like there's certain subjects like our school system, our education system hasn't changed much in like hundreds of years. Like the subjects that we're teaching, which are important, but like we need to learn about like becoming media savvy, about, how is media used to be able to manipulate us, how easily we are manipulated. What are the good and bad? How do you know if you're addicted? Like there's a lot of information that we need to be taught at a much younger age. And when people watch shows like this and read articles about media, they're learning about the good and the bad of that, which I think is really important because I don't think that most people know. And I think that when you're young, they don't really know how addictive that is, how it's actually changing the wiring of your brain. And that's like once you start working through addiction centers really quick at a very young age, they become really strong. And some people have addictive personalities where they're already inclined to be able to be addicted to that dopamine center, which makes us feel motivated and excited. It's all those bells and whistles that happen in our head when you win a jackpot or, open up some tasty treat on your video game and get the best card that you're supposed to have. So if we knew about that, I think that we would make better decisions.
I mean, I'm addicted to spaghetti. That doesn't mean it's Chef Boyardee's fault, right? I mean, humans are by nature addictive. We love stuff, and we sometimes love it to our detriment. Andy?
Yeah. But is it the same?
Go ahead, Georgia.
Oh, I was just going to say, is it the same, though, right?
Well, it is. I mean, you clearly can see the side effects of me being addicted to spaghetti. Yeah. It hasn't been good.
But the landmark decision against the tobacco companies points the way towards every sort of law about addiction. It wasn't so much that they were selling an addictive substance. It was that they knew how addictive it was. They were intentionally adapting the product to make it more addictive, and they were actively denying and disproving that it was addictive to their customers. So that really put the responsibility right in their laps.
Do you think the social networks do the same thing?
I definitely think they know why I think that why slot machines in 2022, based on digital technology, work much differently and much more efficiently than the ones built in 1953. They understand when to disrupt our rational centers. Obviously, Georgian will talk better about this than I can. But nonetheless, I'm concerned about laws like this. I'm not so concerned about this one. Rather, I wasn't as much as I was after I read the law itself, because it does appear to be, what it does is that it doesn't simply say we are going to punish you if you're a service and you meet some extremely vaguely defined way of mishandling your child customers and making them addicted to stuff. It basically puts some guideposts into what qualifies for this sort of relief. But most importantly, I think, is the section that basically says that, by the way, you get a complete get out of jail free card if you just do these two things. If you do quarterly audits of how your practices could be addicting children, and then if you whatever you find that seems to be addictive, if you remedy this within 30 days, again, you get a get out of jail free card. So I think that from my reading of this, he said, not being a lawyer, it does seem as though the thrust of this is not to open up the gates to all kinds of lawsuits, but to basically say, look, it's not enough for us to simply put into the law that you are required to do quarterly audits and remedy things within 30 days. We're going to put this rule in place as a way for you to get the escape clause from a whole bunch of hurt that you don't want to be involved in.
That is good. Yeah, that just pushes them to do some responsible reporting and accounting. And I think that's good. So yeah, now that I didn't read the law. Thank you for doing your homework. Now that you say that, I'm not so against it. I think that's not such a bad idea.
I think it could still be a little bit more specific, but the wording basically points out to addiction, including but not limited to, like, depression as diagnosed by a professional, self-harm, all kinds of other things that children are vulnerable to in a state of addiction through social media.
And there's no question about that happening, right? I mean, we hear about it all the time.
There needs to be some liability, I do think. But
Yeah.
as long as you do it carefully and don't basically torch an entire platform, because in addition to causing harm to kids, social media in allowing very isolated kids who think that they're the only person who are like this, they're the only people who are suffering these problems, to find their tribe, to find their people out there who they can talk to when they don't feel as though they can talk to any of the adults that are in their lives. There's no numerical index to how much that has helped children over the past 10 or however many years we've had social media, and we don't want to disrupt that.
Right. Georgia, you would not let your kids use Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, or TikTok, but you would let them strap on a visor and play virtual reality games all day.
And I wouldn't say that I won't let them use that social media as long as they use it responsibly and they understand what they're doing. And if I catch them that they're not using it responsibly, it's a different story. Like,
you're addicted to VR, though. You're addicted to VR. Let's admit it.
I love VR. It's not actually very addictive. VR is a little bit exhausting, right? You wear it for a while. You actually want to get out because you're tired. Your eyes are strained. It's heavy. I would love to be more addicted to VR. Unfortunately, it is. Like after 45 minutes to 2 hours, I'm done. I'm like, good. I need to take a break.
That's good.
So because of that, it has its own effect that you don't really have to worry to it. I think that, social media targeting kids is different than being able to be used by kids. I think that it's like the Camel cigarettes where they had this little cartoon character and they realized that, if you don't start smoking by the age of 18, you're probably never going to smoke. And so they were like, oh, let's make sure that we grab kids when they're young. So they start smoking so we can make our money. And then the governments kind of went down on it and having cool packaging. It works so well for us. Like, we all think that we're not going to be able to get attracted to being able to use something that's flashy and snazzy looking and that all of our, people that we looked up to are using. But we are all very easily manipulated by these things. So
it's funny.
I think that's what we need to look at.
Here in California, there's we've got a primary election coming up in a couple of days, and there's a big battle going on. You see ads all the time on TV saying, don't let these online gaming apps, I think they're going after DraftKings, FanDuel, and all that stuff, don't let these addict our children and cause great harm in society, but it's being paid for by the Indian casinos in California. And every time I see it, I think, Yeah, don't let them addict your kids. We want to do that. That's going to be our job.
They can't do that to our pigeons. Only we can do that to our pigeons.
There seems some hypocrisy there. It's a little, a little strange. But on the other hand, who's responsible if you use something to excess? I mean, everything in our lives can be used to excess in some way or another. Ultimately, there has to be some, for adults, some personal responsibility, for kids, some parental responsibility, or not, Georgia.
I think so. I think that it really is up to parents. I think it's also up to our education system as well. Like, I think that, we should be electing people as officials that will end up making our education system so that, it's going to be giving the best education that there is to our kids so that they end up learning about, media knowledge, about, what happens inside the brain and what doesn't, because it's really important. And I think that for some parents, it's an easy thing to say that it's parents' responsibility to watch their kids, but especially with the way that the economy is, there are many people that have to work one or two jobs to be able to support their family. And so they're spending more time at school than they are at home. And it's an easy thing to say that parents should be able to watch their kids all the time, but it's really hard for a lot of families, and especially right now. And so I think that we need to make sure that we are enforcing that an education system is going to be teaching the kids the lessons that they need to be able to survive and have all of those different skills and know the pitfalls that are coming forward, because we need to teach them really early. And I think that we really have let down a lot of kids about not learning about finance and not learning about what type of media and the way that advertising works and the way that fear makes us be able to give up our privacy and our rights so effortlessly.
It's almost, look, have always been surrounded by addictive stuff. We tried, in the earlier part of the 20th century to ban alcohol. That didn't work out so well.
Banning is such a horrible idea, though, in comparison to teaching people the effect. Like, I don't know about banning. Banning seems to do the opposite, right? Like, just saying no to something, like saying no to drugs, is a very ineffective method to be able to stop people from actually using drugs.
Yeah. And I think the 20th Amendment didn't really work in eliminating. There's a fountain downtown from the Women's Christian Temperance Union. It was put in around 1909. That says something like abstinence is the only solution to the drinking problem. It's etched in us. It's right next to one of our finer bars. And I think the idea is from the Women's Christian Temperance Union, here, have some water. Don't go in there. Have some water. And it's still there. I think it's a fabulous monument to a good and principled idea and an absolutely failed political process. We also have a brewery in San Francisco called the 21st Amendment Brewery, which is the repeal